We're gonna kind of work on this as we go, if you guys don't mind. It's a work in progress, so there's some stuff that needs to be corrected. We'll work on that as we go along. But I want to share a story with you that actually relates to the subject of this particular piece. But before I do that, I want to give you a little bit of context, right? So I'm a Louisville native. Grew up in this town, loved this town, and as a very young man, I fell in love with hip-hop culture, hip-hop music. And in fact, I fell in love with the music first. I heard, like maybe some of you are much younger than that, but like so many people who fell in love with the culture, I heard groups like Run DMC and Treacherous 3, Kumo D, etc. And I fell in love with this idea of young people, mainly young black men, telling these incredible stories through rhyme over incredible music, funk beats and soul beats. And I thought, man, what is this, right? And then I found out that there was an entire culture attached to the music. So there was a visual aspect in graffiti, and there was there were DJs, and it wasn't just the music, but it was an entire cultural movement. So I wanted to know more. So I was doing research, and I had friends who actually lived in New York at the time, and they would send me real mixtapes, right? Like an actual cassette tape with a mix on it. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. I see it in your face. So anyway, one of probably the most impactful thing that ever happened to hip-hop culture was a show called Yo MTV Raps, right? And the host of that show, in fact, the kind of co-creator of the show, was a gentleman named, his name is Fred Braithwaite, but we know him as Fab5Freddy, okay? And that's who this gentleman is. Fab5Freddy. He's a Brooklyn native. He is not only a legend in hip-hop and a historian of the culture, but he's also a visual artist. He's also a filmmaker. He was great friends with Jean-Michel Basquiat, great friends with Andy Warhol. And through his connections in hip-hop and his connections in the art world, he was able to bring those two worlds together. In fact, in Blondie's Rapture video and song, Debbie Harry is actually rapping in that song, and she's rapping because of her relationship with Fab5Freddy. In the video, she's in what looks to be like an old warehouse, and there's somebody doing graffiti and breakdancing and all of that, and that was all because of the influence of Fab5Freddy, okay? Right, now, so as a young man, I joined a hip-hop band here in Louisville. We were called New Cali, N-U-C-A-L-I, which stood for New York Lyrics and California Cuts. And what that meant was we had a DJ whose influence was from Los Angeles and the West Coast, and we had another lead vocalist, which I was the second vocalist, whose influence was from the East Coast of New York, so we were New Cali, right? So I'm 16 years old, I get a record deal. Now, mind you, my influence has always been not only hip-hop, but anything visual, film, comic books, advertising, everything. So I've always been involved in the arts in some way, right? But since I'm about 9 years old, my real focus is on becoming a hip-hop legend. Really, it's what I wanted to do, right? That was my goal. I wanted to be LL Cool J. I wanted to be Run DMC. So I get a record deal. We're 16. We get signed to a label in Miami, Florida, and this is our big opportunity, okay? So we move to Miami. We record this album, classic album. The album was never released. We recorded a single, though, that was released. If you want to YouTube this, you want to Google this. It's called Built for Speed. Great song, okay, if I do say so myself. All right, so we released the single. We're working on the album. We get a call one day from our publicist, and our publicist says, look, there's a tour coming through Miami, and we want you guys to open up for the main act, who at the time was De La Soul, who had their very first single that was in rotation, and they were selling out everywhere they went, right? And the host of this tour was none other than Fab5Freddy, right? So a huge opportunity for us. Of course, we're going to do it. We do it. We show up to the gig. The two guys that I was in the crew with, they weren't as, let's say, disciplined as I was when it came to rehearsing and performing, and so they just they would wing it, right? So we do this performance, and the crowd receives us well, but I don't think we are doing as well as we should. So afterward, I go behind the stage, which at the time was actually underneath the stage, and show you how long ago this was, 1989. You could smoke in the club, right? So I go to the backstage area, and it's really dark back there, and I can smell someone standing behind me smoking a cigarette. And I turn around, I hear somebody say, "Yo, man, you are really, really dope." And I turn around, and it's Fab5Freddy. He's smoking a cigarette, and he says, "Yo, I watched your whole performance." He said, "Your crew is okay, but you are nice," right? So I don't even know what to say. My mouth is literally like on the floor, like, Fab5Freddy just said I was dope. Did that just happen, right? And Fab is so cool. He's a big guy, too. He's probably about 6'4". Fab is so cool, like, he doesn't make a big deal out of anything. You know what I mean? So you couldn't tell by just his expression if he was really feeling it. I mean, he said it, so he must have been. But by his expression, it was just kind of like, yeah, whatever. So I'm like, all right, well, I can't fanboy out. I got to just kind of give it back, right? So I'm like, "Yo, man, thanks. I appreciate that." Like, it was no big deal. It was a big deal. So we take a picture together. I have no idea where that picture is today. I wish I had it. But that was a pivotal moment for me, right? Because somebody that I literally idolized confirmed for me that what I was doing was the right thing. I thought, how powerful is that, right? That you can give confirmation to someone to live their dream, to find their purpose. That's incredible. What an amazing honor it is to have that ability, to have that power. So, one thing led to another. The record deal didn't really pan out, but we did our thing. We toured and so forth and so on. But the creative side, the visual side, never left me. In fact, all of the influences that I had really just poured into what I do visually. So I am an illustrator, but I'm also called, some people call me the illest straighter. Right on. I'm with that. I'll accept that title. Right? So now I have the opportunity and find myself in a position to give permission to people to live their purpose, to find their purpose, and to execute on a daily basis. So everything that was poured into me as a young man, I shared with my children who are here today. I'm so blessed to be able to work with my son Justice, who's an incredible, you'll hear from later, who's an incredible illustrator himself. And so all of the knowledge of what made me me, right, and what motivates me to get up every day, I share with my children. And I see that reflection in them because the power of finding your purpose and living your purpose is the whole reason we're here in the first place. And as human beings, unfortunately, we do need that confirmation. And we don't always get it from the people that we care about or the people that are closest to us. And so I am giving you the power today to live your purpose. And if you haven't found your purpose, to go find it and then share that energy with everyone that you come in contact with on a daily basis. As a black man in America, it is even more important that what I do has a sense of representation in it, and that when I'm able to do what I do publicly, I share my knowledge, I share my experience with anyone who wants it, but particularly people who look like me. Because had it not been for me running into this gentleman, I may not be here with you today. Right? So, as I shared that with you, but I'm also I see some areas that need to be kind of corrected here, so we're going to add just a little more flavor to Fab before we close it out. And we'll work on this out in the lobby, too, afterward. If you guys want to come by and see the progress, you are more than welcome. All right, that's cool for now. We'll add a little more to him later and make sure that we do him justice, all right? But again, it is not only an honor and a pleasure to be here with you guys today, but I just want to remind you that, again, it's our responsibility, it's our duty, right, to empower each other to do the thing that we were put here to do. All right? Thank you so very much.